Welcome to It's All Your Fault on True Story FM, the one and only podcast dedicated to helping you identify and deal with the most challenging human interactions, those involving someone with a high conflict personality. I'm Megan Hunter, and I'm here with my co-host, Bill Eddy.
Hi, everybody.
We are the co-founders of the High Conflict Institute in San Diego, California, where we focus on consulting and training and coaching and educational programs and methods, all to do with high conflict. In today's episode, we are launching two brand new things. Number one, this is our first time doing it on video. So welcome to Bill and Megan's video world. We might have a few fumbles, but we think we're looking pretty good. Lighting might be a little bit off, but it's okay. Also new is this is the first of our series called Our New World of Bullies, or just World of Bullies series. It is in correlation with the release of Bill's brand new book that's coming out June 11th, 2024, called Our New World of Adult Bullies, How to Spot Them, How to Stop Them. A little bit of a tongue twister. So we're going to get the 411 from Bill on the book, all of his research into it and what he found and all the solutions he proposes in the book. And then we're going to talk about a couple of very current, recent news items that kind of have to do with bullying, or we'll see if they do. Maybe they don't. Bill will tell us. First, a couple of notes. Please send your high conflict related questions or comments to podcast@highconflictinstitute.com. And you'll also find all of the show notes and links at highconflictinstitute.com/podcast. And you'll find links to the books and all kinds of things like that. So, Bill, welcome to this brand new series, World of Bullies. Your new book is coming out soon. Already the pre-orders are fantastic, and we've been talking about it a lot. I know you've been doing a ton of news interviews, and I'm sure a lot more to come. So I just want to open the floor to you and say, tell us about the book. I have one question, and then just, free flow from there. What made you write this book?
Well, it actually started in the first year of COVID. I don't think I've even told this to you, but I remember it was December of 2020. And I remember just waking up one of those days when there wasn't much happening because so much had canceled, and thinking, I really want to explain what's happening with high conflict personalities, but I really want to focus on the most high conflict personalities, and that's bullies. And that we were already seeing more bullying in the first year of COVID. We were seeing political disputes that involved bullying. We were seeing neighborhood disputes, people in stores that were yelling at each other about masks and vaccines. And I just wanted to explain that we're on the same team, all of us, humanity. We're on the same team, and that we need to understand bullies not as bad people and making judgments about them, but as people we need to strategize around and set limits on and have consequences for. A big part of it is that we all are going to be seeing bullies, that it's now part of our culture, and in many ways, bullies get the most news attention. And so bullies on airplanes, bullies on the highway, bullies in stores, bullies in Congress, bullies everywhere. And that I wanted to explain that the dynamics are all the same, and that everyone needs to learn their hidden powers because they're really hidden in plain sight. And so I wanted to list those so people know how to spot them, what to look for, but also how to stop them. Because one of the fundamental things I realize people don't understand is bullies can't stop themselves. This is who they are. And so it takes other people to stop them, to set limits, to say, you can't do this, you can't go there. And there's a consequence if you do. That's what bullies need. They need structure. Bullies don't even think about what they're doing. They just do it. Much of it's impulsive. Much of it's destructive to other people, that they have a drive to dominate or destroy other people. And you said, what did I learn from researching this? Is really that many bullies are born this way, and that many bullies learn in early childhood to be this way, either from abuse or from being indulged and entitled and getting away with bullying people and getting laughed at and going, oh, that's fun. I'm going to do more of that. So it's not things that people sat down and decided. It's part of who they are. And we all have to realize that. And bullies may have a lot to contribute, but they can't stop themselves. So we have to restrain them, not eliminate them, but restrain them enough that their contributions can be made without them harming other people.
Yeah, some things that just start ringing in my head are if we took cues from nature, from the animal kingdom, they do a lot of limit setting and structure, and they don't let the bullies take over, right? They do stand up to bullies. So what's happened in our polite society that's caused us to sort of devolve from knowing that we need to stop the bullies?
Well, what's interesting is I think humanity really has evolved into a fairly cooperative civilization where people do, like, they stop at red lights mostly. They stay in their lane mostly. We go the speed limit, well, much of the time.
Ish.
But that we've developed a rules-based culture instead of the biggest bully is in charge and makes everything happen. And we've been evolving like this in many ways, I'd say at least the last 1,000 years, when in 1215, and I think I put this in the book, that in England, the Magna Carta, they set limits on the king and said, no, you're going to share power with the lords and nobles. You're not a free, to do whatever you want, a free dictator or anything like that. And then we came up with constitutions. The U.S. Constitution is a role model for the world. So we've been moving in this more and more cooperative direction. But what's interesting, and I learned a lot more than I had thought, is our high emotion media. That our media that shows on screens people yelling at each other, throwing things at each other, bullying each other, is actually influencing our thinking, making us think, oh, that's what you do, because we mirror each other. And so you see bullying in a movie, on TV, on your smartphone. That's starting to become part of our culture, that's what you do. You yell at people, you call them names, you make it personal. That's a shift, and I think it's really because our technology has advanced so rapidly that as human beings, we haven't caught up with setting limits on that. But I think we can, and that's a lot of why I wrote the book. We need to set limits. We're not going to stop this. And I don't need government policies that say everybody has to be nice to each other. But we all need to learn skills at setting limits when people really aren't nice to us.
Yeah, and I have to say the mirroring is really fascinating because I know, you and I have been co-founders of this company for close to 18 years now. I noticed early on that you started every email with, "Hi, Megan," or "Hi, Susie," or whatever. And we all have adapted to that. And it's rare when I don't come back with, "Hi, Bill," even though it seems like that's too much extra work, and sometimes I don't do it because I'm in a hurry and I just, send it off. But you really can kind of set the stage, set the culture, and set the communication culture really with things like that. So that extends, into how we behave in culture. And I want to share a piece of good news with you because I know you're not a social media fan or user, but I'm a recent person on Instagram. And I really, really like it. And something I've learned from it, there's a lot of different accounts that just show everything in the world. One of them, or maybe more than one, is about, Karens, quote unquote Karens, the women who, yell at people. And frankly, there's a lot of bullying that they show on there. And I think with that does for people who see it. There may be some who gravitate toward it, but I think for others, it helps us check our behavior a bit.
Mm.
So we might be seeing, and I know that's happened even with me, like if I'm feeling frustrated with somebody at a restaurant, check myself. Don't say something rude. Just, I mean, because we've really become acclimated to that in our culture, that that's kind of what you do. Even if you've been raised to be polite and mannered and respectful, I think it's kind of seeped in a bit. So that's a bit of good news. I don't want to be a Karen.
Yeah, and I think you're right that there's a lot that we see that's good, that helps us become more self-aware. There's a lot of information, and of course, now that we're on video and people can see us, we're part of what people see. So hopefully, they'll mirror us being friendly and smiling and hopeful and informative. Rather, we're not throwing things at each other. It's not Jerry Springer.
Yeah, we've never done that.
So I think all the media, the technology, I'm not someone against that. I just think we have to learn skills to manage it and find balance, because I don't disagree with entertainment. I think, a movie that shows buildings blowing up and people shooting each other and all that stuff is okay if it's part of life, but doesn't dominate life. And I think we're starting to see the balance tip too much. And that's the problem to me. So I think we can use video, radio, everything for good. And we can have nasty, bad stuff as a part of our lives that's entertainment, that we know is entertainment. And we know this isn't the way to talk to people in your family. And that's what's been getting blurred because there's so many bullies now, I think.
Yeah, and going back to where you started at the pandemic, it seemed that, it was so divisive about the vaccines, about, masking from the beginning to the end. It became a very divisive thing. And some loud voices on either side of every argument got louder. And it seemed to influence and infiltrate into the rest of us. And you found yourself taking sides, or you found yourself disgusted when somebody that thought was a friend suddenly felt oppositional to you and started being rude and kind of mean and maybe even bullying a little bit because they perceive you have a different opinion than they do. I think it's probably spurred on the bully culture a bit, unfortunately. So I think the book is perfect timing, as you and I both know, in our trainings everywhere. And, I talk to a lot of people, you talk to a lot of people in our work, whether we're out on the road training or just taking phone calls. And 99% of the time, people are saying conflict has increased, aggression has increased, bullying has increased. The gloves are off. So we got to get the gloves. I don't know. Is back on the right way to say it? I don't think so. But
we have to take everybody's gloves off.
That's right. Just be kind. Just be kind.
Unless it's a boxing entertainment program, they can have gloves for entertainment,
exactly.
but not for real life.
Structured, controlled environment. Right. Exactly. Also, as kind of observed that as the world got stressed out about the pandemic and the stay-at-home orders and just the loneliness and all of this, anxiety increased. Everyone's anxiety increased because of the unknown. We didn't know what was coming. We didn't know what was happening. We'd never lived through anything like this before. So, when was it coming for us? So we were all living in sort of that right brain fear mode for quite a long time. And when you're in a more of a fear state, even if it's a moderate level, we're going to be more on edge. And when we're on edge, we're going to be crankier and spicier and probably engage in conflicts perhaps that we wouldn't have engaged in before. And those with the loudest, most extreme voices that have, the bullying maybe from birth, right? They just got louder.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is if a bully personally attacks you, not physically, but verbally, then we're good at this. We're training people and all of that to not react and to not engage at the same level. But I think maybe a majority of people don't automatically react as intensely as a bully. But because we're in an age of bullying, and we're all anxious, we're like, we react faster. And one thing the internet's done is shortened our attention span, which has made us more emotional and less reflective. And so we're kind of more raw. And so if somebody starts to bully us, we're like either ready to fight or to just head out the door or frozen. We're reactive more than kind of overriding our responses. And part of the book is how to override your responses, to not let these primitive emotional powers that bullies have trigger primitive emotional responses in us. And that's the thing. It's below our awareness, but we have fear, we have rage, and we have caring for people. This is all in common with all mammals. And you're talking about going back into the animal kingdom. We have the same 7 primitive emotional systems that all mammals have: fear, rage, caring. What I call love loyalty is the caring. And then if somebody is in a panic or grieving, we automatically feel like reaching out to them. So you put the caring and panic grief responses together. I call it love loyalty, and bullies trigger that. It's like, everything's, your life is a mess. You're a crazy person, and I'll take care of you. And so people go, oh, okay, here's my hero. And like in domestic violence cases, they say, you don't need anybody else but me because you're a mess. You're a crisis and you can't count on anybody. And all those people out there don't like you. And it triggers all this primitive emotional stuff in us that makes us submit more, like to a bully, a domestic violence perpetrator. And I talk about that in the book, that people don't even realize how their self-esteem is going down and they're accepting more and more what the bully says. And that's all primitive stuff. So I want to make it out in the open and have people understand what's happening and how to override all that.
Yeah, I love that. Made me think about people getting isolated. Often
Yes.
when there's a bully, you end up becoming very isolated. Like, who will believe me? Or I'm embarrassed to tell anyone. A bully will often, have us walking on eggshells. So we just become more and more isolated in that. And then, yeah, your self-esteem goes down and confidence goes down and depression probably goes up and maybe drinking and other things too. So there's a huge impact. The relational impact in bullying is tremendous. I wonder then in your book, did you talk about a point where you've tried everything. You've tried everything in this new Bill Eddy book and the bully won't stop. Then what?
Well, that's part of what I talk about in there. In fact, that's the first power. The first hidden power I talk about is unrestrained personalities, that they don't restrain themselves. And for those who know, I talk about personality disorders, some. 3 personality disorders sometimes are present in bullies. Narcissists, of course, because they lack empathy. And so they don't feel for the other person and they're just willing to step on them to get ahead. Antisocial personality lacks remorse. Remorse stops most of us from hurting other people. Oh, they lack that. It's almost like a key ingredient's missing. And so they're charging forward and willing to hurt people without even paying attention to whether it hurts them. They want what they want, and if you're in the way, tough luck, I'm going to hurt you. But also borderline personality, where it comes out more like domestic violence. A lot of that is people with borderline personality patterns, that there's a lack of self-control, and bullies often have a lack of self-control. So these 3 personalities are present. They have more bullying than average. And so I talk briefly about them, but it really is they don't stop themselves, and it's part of their personality. And like, say, in a workplace, people go, oh, Joe is just, out of line, but he's going to realize it soon, or Jane, she's going to come to her senses. And then they don't. And everyone's kind of waiting for them to take care of it. And they have to be stopped. People around them have to say, hey, that's enough, Joe, or that's enough, Jane. Bystanders have to play a role and can. And organizations have to have policies and enforce their policies. So the more we set limits on bullies and impose consequences, the more everybody's anxiety level, I think, will go back down again. That's in many ways part of the book, just making people aware, but also how to stop bullies. And it's setting limits and imposing consequences individually and collectively.
Which you now call SLIC Solutions, setting limits and imposing consequences in 2.5 steps. I'll let you know right now, this is a surprise to you, but I taught that for the first time a few days ago to a group of people who deal with a lot of bullies in the course of their daily work, just by virtue of what they do. And they loved this. They loved having something solid to grasp onto. Set a limit. Here's how you do it. If you have to set it again, set it with the threat of a possible consequence. And then if that limit is violated, then you impose the consequence. It's really pretty simple. It's much easier than people think. And so I think it's, for many people, going to be just a game changer, really, in particularly in high conflict situations. You have to have this. It's not all about just having empathy.
Right. People say I was really nice and they still were a jerk.
Yeah. And it's shocking. It's just such a world of opposites. We think that just by being kind that we're going to, change the world. And yeah, it's great to be kind, but with people who don't stop themselves, we can still be kind. Like, setting a limit is a kindness. Setting a limit and imposing a consequence is a gift, right? So it might keep them out of trouble or something. So I just wanted to let you know that it's very successful and being used already. And I know you just came up with, you've been talking about setting limits for a long time, but adding the imposing consequences piece as a something, a technique that people can grasp onto very quickly and easily.
Right. I should say a little more about the half step also.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
So 2.5 steps. First step, as you said, Megan, is setting the limit, saying what's the behavior I expect and not to cross this line. And then if you have to, imposing consequences. And that's where I found, and in the book, people really hesitated. They would set a limit, but not impose consequences and not even threaten the consequences. And often bullies stop at the threat of consequences if they know it will really happen, like losing a job. And I had examples in the book. People, if you don't change your behavior, you're going to lose your job. Unfortunately, in 2 cases, they couldn't change. They sued their companies, they lost their jobs, and they lost their lawsuits. So imposing consequences is, I think, the big step that's in the SLIC, setting limits, imposing consequences. But the half step is about half the time you want to give them an ear statement, empathy, attention, and respect, and say, now this is, I want to help you, and that's why I'm doing it. It doesn't help you if I let you get away with, walking on my toes or whatever you're doing. And having empathy and saying, I know this is hard. I know this is disappointing. Hang in there. The way you would talk to a child and maybe an adolescent. But there's some bullies that you don't want to do that with because they will manipulate you. They'll say, well, if you had empathy for me, you would sign this blank check. If you had empathy for me, you'd bail me out of jail after my whatever behavior yesterday. Or if you had respect for me, you'd let me walk all over you. Or you wouldn't set limits on me if you had respect for me. How dare you do that? And so they put energy into twisting your empathy, attention, and respect to distract you and to wiggle out of having the limit set. And so that's why I said half the time, don't do an ear statement. Just stand firm with your limit And a lot of bullies actually respect that. They go, okay, this guy's really serious, and there's no hooks for me to manipulate him with. So that's setting the limit, imposing the consequence, and half the time giving an air statement and half the time not.
Mm. You know, what I know this is going to sound quite ridiculous, but I think prison is probably the best example of setting limits and imposing consequences, right? There's a pecking order, and the people that set the limits and impose the consequences are, really in charge.
Yeah. And I have in the book several examples where it really was the legal system and prison that had to be used to stop. And I'll give, one of the most recent big examples is Harvey Weinstein. So Harvey Weinstein got away for decades, not just sexually harassing women, but sexually assaulting them, raping them. He had a lot of negative advocates, which is a chapter in the book also, who covered up for him, threatened the people who had been abused if they spoke up about it. And so he got away with it, and that enabled him to keep being a bully and being a dangerous person. And they said about 80 women. And the final result was he went to prison, and he's in prison now. And he's got 2 prison sentences, I think one in New York and one in Los Angeles. And one of them recently got set aside. There was some problems with it, but they don't think it's going to go away. And he still has the other one in Los Angeles. So there's consequences for this behavior. And you know what? It represented to society. That's a limit for society. You can't get away with this, even if you're a big deal movie producer.
Right, right. And I think it emboldened the others to speak out in similar situations. So you have the limits and consequences imposed by the government, by, the laws and rules of society. And then within the prison itself, there's a pecking order of those of prisoners, right? They set limits like nobody's business. They, and people respect them. They know who can be crossed and who cannot be crossed. So they give us kind of an interesting example. In fact, there's a Netflix documentary right now of a prison in maybe a Midwestern state in the United States, like maybe Oklahoma, where the prison warden decided to let the inmates out of their cells instead of having to be in their cells for, 23 hours a day or something. I mean, just ridiculous amounts of time, right? To let them out and let them figure out how to make things work. And so if they could structure their own society and kind of create their own rules and keep within the rules. And he gave them some freedom. He set the limit, told them what the desired behavior would be and what the consequence. You pick the consequence. The consequence will either be good. We're going to try it for 30 days. And if you screw up, the consequence will be bad. You're going back under, sit in your rooms all day. But if you can behave to this level, then we'll continue it another 30 days and we'll keep reviewing it. And I think people underestimate the power of just setting the limit and definitely underestimate the power of imposing the consequence. So we just have to all get better at that. So with that, let's take a break and we'll come right back. And we're going to talk about 2 recent news cases. Okay, we're back talking about bullies and what to do. So we're going to talk now about something that happened just recently in the U.S. in the halls of Congress. And it was I think maybe 3 women involved in sort of a kerfuffle is a nice way of putting it. So we're going to play the audio here so you can hear it. And then Bill's going to comment it right after that.
Do you know what we're here for? You know we're here about AG.
I don't think you know what you're here for.
Well, you the one talking about.
I think your fake eyelashes are messing up.
No, ain't nothing.
Hold on.
Listen.
Order.
Mr. Chairman,
That's beneath even
the order of your committee.
Order.
I do have a point of order, and I would like to move to take down Ms. Green's words. That is absolutely unacceptable. How dare you attack
meeting will
the
suspend.
physical
Meeting will
appearance of another
suspend.
person?
Are your
Move
feelings hurt?
her words down.
Aw.
Oh, girl, baby girl.
Oh, really?
Don't even play. with
Baby
me.
girl? I don't think
We are going to
so.
move, and we're going to take your words down.
I second that motion.
You agree to strike your words?
Yeah. I'll
Okay.
agree.
Ms. Green agrees to strike her words.
I believe she
Chair
should apologize.
recognizes
No.
Mr.
She
Perry.
should apologize.
Okay, hold on. Then after Mr. Perry's going to be recognized, then Ms. Green
I'm not
has 4 minutes and
apologizing.
21
Well,
seconds.
then
Okay,
you're
reserve
not
the right to
striking your
object.
words.
I am
Mr.
not
Perry.
apologizing.
Now let's go.
I'm just curious, just to better understand your ruling. If someone on this committee then starts talking about somebody's bleach blonde, bad built butch body, that would not be engaging in personalities, correct?
A what now?
Chairman, I make a motion to strike those words.
I don't think that's
Hold on.
a part of it.
Okay, Bill. So that was more than a kerfuffle. So what happened there? Is that anything akin to bullying?
Well, I think so. And maybe I should define bullying. In many ways, it's making it personal, making a person feel physically threatened, emotionally threatened, that you're demeaning to them. And it's not one incident, it's a pattern of behavior. But the idea is when you say something personal about the way somebody looks, the way they dress, their sanity, their morals, their intelligence, especially in front of other people, and making people uncomfortable, that's bullying. And I've got a definition from the American Psychiatric Association, I think, at the beginning of the book. But it's really making people uncomfortable, making them feel threatened, whether social standing or their physical existence. So as soon as somebody makes a personal statement about somebody, I think you're getting into bullying, especially in a big public setting like Congress, where the whole world can watch if they want these committee meetings that they have.
Yeah. So what could have been done differently in this particular situation?
Well, this really follows from setting limits and imposing consequences, because there was no limit set and there was no consequences. So pretty quickly after the one woman said nasty comment about the other person's appearance, then, and I forget which one went in first, but the woman who was the target made some other derogatory personal attack back, and that was very dramatic. And a third woman, who wasn't one of the two that were targeting each other, joined in and basically started making also personal comments. And so you've got three people now personally attacking each other with a lot of gusto, a lot of intensity, which shocked the chairperson of the meeting. And to me, there's four people that made mistakes there. The three women that made their personal attacks on each other, but the chairperson didn't do what needs to be done. And this is a lot of why I wrote the book, is to warn people. Bullies are coming to you. They're coming to your house, to your job, to your committee meeting. And so you need to be prepared. And we have actually been preparing people for this for the last, I think, about 5 years, when we developed the respectful meeting policy. We've used this at homeowners association meetings, some companies, and the idea is that the chairperson of a meeting has the right to interrupt somebody who's being disrespectful and to tell them they need to correct their speech to be respectful. And if they don't, then I'm going to stop the meeting and we'll take a break, or I'll have you removed from the meeting, or I'm going to end the meeting. So there's a consequence. And so you give the person a chance, you set the limit, you say, please speak respectfully. If you don't, then I'll need to do this. and they continue to speak disrespectfully, then you have to impose that. So what the chairperson should have done is when the first person made the personal attack on appearance of another person, they had a gavel. They should have banged their gavel and said, wait a minute, out of order, you need to stop. Do you agree to stop doing that? And the person probably would say yes. Okay, then we can proceed. They say, no, I'm going to say whatever I want. Say, okay, I'm calling a break. And you have to be quick with that. You have to just jump in when people start doing this. And my hope is that more and more people chairing meetings will be ready to do that. Now, there's an added piece that we suggest with this, and that is meetings like public meetings where you think somebody might be bullying somebody, is you put a little notice out, either on the meeting agenda or on the meeting table that says, we follow the respectful meeting policy here. Please speak respectfully, or the meeting may have to be adjourned, or you may have to be removed, something like that. So, and I've got that in the book, the actual paragraph that I recommend people use. But that's what people have to do. And everybody's going to have to learn how to do this. And that's sad, but that's what we're facing today. And if everybody does this, we're going to have a calmer, safer, happier society.
Agreed. All right, so let's switch now into another recent news item. And this is about Instagram, social media again. So this is from one young woman to another young woman. And so I'll just read it to you. Hi, I was wondering if I could purchase your username from you. I just got married and this is my new name. So the person she's written to writes back saying, hey, congrats. Yeah, that's my name too. I just Googled and it said that selling my username on Instagram would get me banned from Instagram. So they don't allow, there's a policy, there's a limit. So the asker says, I purchased my username in the past. So actually that's not true. Celebrities do it all the time. And that's how they all have their handles as their full names. So weird that I didn't know there was another family name out there like this. I see that you're not that active on here, but started Instagram in 2018, but changed your username 3 times. Is there any way I can get you to change your username one more time? And gives some laughing emojis. The responder says, I use this Instagram name for private stories, and I don't want to get banned. Sorry. So the asker responds with, I actually don't believe that your name is Catherine Asplund. Who would make their fake Instagram account, what they call a Finsta, which is a kind of a private account? Why would you make that your actual name? I reported you to Instagram, and they're actually able to tell me your real name. I really hope I don't know you because that's really going to be embarrassing for you. The responder says, you can report me. Asker responds, I just did, and my fiance did too. So responder says, you're asking me to do something to get my account banned. I doubt Instagram would take that lightly. Asker responds, I'm asking you to change your username because you're pretending to be someone you're not. So then she goes on that, it's illegal to use your real name, and I'm reporting you. My fiance is reporting you. And goes on, the family I just married into is the only Asplund family in the U.S. The responder says, I'm not American. And the asker says, do you have proof that's your name? I would love to see that. So here's the final thing. The responder says, why do I have to send you any proof of who I am? This is my account. I've had it since 2018. I'm sorry we share the same name, but just because you got married doesn't mean you can have my username. If you were nice, I would have considered giving it to you for free, but you weren't. I reported you for asking me to sell my account and another report for harassing me. Have a good day. And there it is. So I don't know, Bill, is any bullying going on here?
Well, I think the bullying is when people insist, when there's been a no and they insist. And especially when it starts bordering on personal or threatening that other people will get involved or legal action and those kinds of things. Because I think about a lot of reasonable people might have gotten partway into that discussion and said, oh, I wasn't aware of that policy. Let's look into that and then get back in touch. I hope you'll think about it. But that's one of today's problems is the rules aren't really clear. And so people insist that other people are being idiots because they're not following the rules as I understand them.
Or as I want them.
Or as I want them. Yeah. So I think, early on, it didn't quite seem like bullying, but then it started feeling like bullying because there was this insistence, even when the person kept saying no.
Yeah.
Our culture is still working with that no means no. Which part of no don't you understand?
All right.
We have to respect that more. We can't just bully people into giving in. And interestingly enough, I have a terrible example in the book early on about somebody that wanted a Twitter handle, I think. They really bullied the person and ended up having a SWAT team come to the person's house.
Oh,
they call
dear.
it swatting. So
Yeah.
I didn't know about swatting until I researched my book.
Horrible.
So things like that. Yeah, terrible stuff.
That's an insane bullying tactic. I mean, that's very extreme. It can get people killed.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
bad stuff. So it's interesting because I think we think about bullying as just this big, aggressive ugliness, and we see that there's a range of bullying, and it's about, like you said, it's when it becomes personal, it's when it's repetitive and that and insistent, and like in this case, turning in someone for something that they didn't even do. It's just insanity. It's ridiculous, and just takes people's time.
Let me just add something so we don't end without saying this. The last chapter talks a lot about what can be done and that many bullies can be coached to reduce or stop their bullying behavior. That's the goal. We don't want to eliminate them. We want to coach them to take off the sharp edges, the sharp elbows, so that they can be productive citizens. They can contribute. They can enjoy life without bullying other people, hurting other people. So enough of that. Some bullies just aren't going to change, even with coaching, and really need to be restrained in a bigger way. And that's when we get into prisons and such like that. But we're optimistic. And that's our whole business as High Conflict Institute, is that we can help people manage situations with high conflict people and even with bullies, the most high conflict people. So there is hope, but there's work to do. And that's what this is about.
Absolutely. That's a great way to end it. And I'll just add one thing. My favorite page of the book so far is the dedication page, where there's a picture of all the little fish, and your dedication says, "To the targets of bullies around the world, you're not alone." And it has this image of what I call an army of fish. So I thought that was fantastic, Bill. I really love that. So thank you for writing the book, and thank you for, discussing it today. We want this book to change the world. Thank you, listeners, for taking time to be with us today, and we hope this will be helpful. We have all the links to the book, and we're having 3 bullying webinars coming September, October, November, one for families, one for communities, and one for workplace. So Bill will be teaching those 4 weeks each. We have all kinds of links to articles in here, so take a look. Next week, we're going to be joined by a special guest, Michael Lomax, who is on our team here at HCI, one of our speakers, trainers, mediators, and we're going to talk about, again, second in our series of World of Bullies, bullies at work and bullies in mediation. In the meantime, send your questions to podcast@highconflictinstitute.com or submit them to highconflictinstitute.com/podcast. We'd love it if you tell your friends and colleagues about us and give us a review, give us a thumbs up. Let us know, let the world know if you like what we have to talk about. Until next time, keep learning, keep practicing skills, read this book, be kind to yourself and others, and set a lot of limits while we all try to find the missing piece and keep the conflict small. It's All Your Fault is a production of True Story FM. Engineering by Andy Nelson. Music by Wolf Samuels, John Coggins, and Ziv Moran. Find the show notes, and transcripts at truestory.fm or highconflictinstitute.com/podcast. If your podcast app allows ratings and reviews, please consider doing that for our show.